Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 27, I believe we're on now, of the UK League Chat podcast. We're joined by Nordavind mid laner Erixen. Erixen, how's it going?
Hey guys, I'm doing fine.
Good stuff.
How about yourself?
Yeah, very good, thanks. So we've got you on. We're going to have a chat about obviously your time on Barrage, which for people watching is probably what they know you for the most, being obviously UK League focused. But now that the UK League's obviously joined with the Nordic League, you're in a bit of an odd position that you've actually been in both before. So you've been in the UK scene, but also for a fair time in the Nordic League. And I wanted to start talking about your time in the Nordic leagues, because one thing that I think is quite interesting that you've mostly been with Nordavind pretty much since you started playing competitively. I think is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially in ERLs, I don't think you kind of see that much continuity very often. You'll often see teams having entirely new rosters every 6 months, pretty much for every split. Why is it you think you've sort of stuck with Nordavind so long, and what has that relationship been like?
So I think for me, it goes probably like 2 years back, if not more, with Nordavind. And I think it's all. So there was a team called Endurance Gaming at the time, and then we basically got picked up by Nordavind when they were gonna go into League of Legends again. And like ever since then, I've just been on Nordavind, and we've been having a pretty good relationship. So yeah, I've just decided to stay here
Mhm.
until the day today. Yeah.
And when I was kind of looking back at and looking at the different rosters you've been on, yeah, because like you say, you've kind of always just stuck around, and there's been other rosters sort of coming in and around, in and out, sorry, around you, um, and you've had I think it's fair to say quite a fair bit of success around the Nordic scene as well as winning the Danish league, Norwegian league, but it seemed like there was sometimes maybe a bit of a struggle in the actual kind of main Nordic Championship, and I was just wondered sort of what your thoughts are on that level, because one thing we've seen, especially when Tom and I were kind of looking at kind of trying to really learn who the new players are, because obviously with the NLC there's a lot of players that we hadn't seen before, having mainly focused on the UK league, and when we were
Mhm.
kind of looking and trying to sort of brush up on the history of a lot of the players, we would see that so many of them were playing in because there was there's so many different tournaments, because you've got obviously the Nordic Championship, but then each country sort of had its own league as well, and it kind of even was like sort of looking like its own sort of mini kind of ERL system in itself, just kind of in
Mhm.
those Nordic leagues. Um, and one thing we could kind of get from that, and it's something that's been tipped as a positive from the NLC itself, is the kind of talent pool that's in there, that's in these kind of countries. Obviously, Denmark being a famous example as just itself. Um, I just wanted to ask, what do you think it is that kind of means that we get so much talent coming from these countries? Because when you think UK players, there's only probably been, you can probably count on one hand the amount that've been in the actual sort of LEC kind of level. But then when it comes to the Nordic leagues, and even Denmark especially, they've got like half the flipping LCS in NA as well. So what is it, do you think, that kind of means that kind of talent is just churned out, over and over again?
Um. So I think like honestly, uh, maybe maybe it's like something to do with the mindset, because I feel like the Nordic players have like a different mindset compared to perhaps like some of the UK players, which is like um I think like what we always do is like we're always like trying to push ourselves, and like becoming complacent and comfortable is probably something that could be holding them back, I think.
Hmm. And yeah, just one thing. So I kind of touched on it a little bit there, but about the kind of difference between the Nordic Championship and those kind of sort of sub leagues, if you like. Um, why is it, do you think, that Nordavind hadn't really had that much success in the Nordic Championship itself? Because even from what we sort of gathered with the last split, the one obviously while you were playing with Barrage, but we kind of heard that even the Nordavind team then should have really been one of the stronger sides, and I think they finished sort of somewhere around mid-table. So what is it? What was it about there? Like it's some sort of like a bogey competition. Like you just couldn't seem to quite crack it. What do you think was the reason behind that?
Well, I wasn't on that team. That
Yeah.
sucked for them. But no, like seriously, I think they really didn't really ever click as a team. It felt more like when I watched them play, it seemed more like it was 5 individuals playing rather than one team.
Hmm.
And I feel like they never really found that synergy that they needed. Because I think they all were like good players individually. They
Yeah.
just didn't seem to find that click as a team. Yeah.
And I think it highlights that when you actually look at the Nordavind roster there, like a lot of them have easily picked up squads and sides and teams to be on. And then about obviously you going to the UKLC, we always made the running joke that Nordavind's best mid laner was not even at Nordavind at that time, because it seemed like the most informed person, even in like the UKLC, probably outside of like mid laners, apart from like the, you know, your what I would say like the tier above in terms of like the academy and Magic Felix in special. Like you were always that third name, maybe you along with Adept and other players like that. So with the UKLC, like how did that happen? You kind of getting loaned out, because it doesn't really happen too much in ERLs.
Yeah. So at the time with Nordavind, we were playing to qualify for the Nordic Championship.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really terrible format, and it was like basically you had to play, I think 5 or 6 best of ones, and you had to win all of them to qualify. So unfortunately, we kind of got cheesed, and we didn't qualify on the 2 tries we had. And then just to like secure that Nordavind could be in the league, the roster of Godsent at the time, which had Aesthetic, Niter, Chrisberg, Adrian, and all these people, Godsent decided to back out. So then essentially we acquired that roster, and obviously they had another, like a different mid lane, right? So either I could choose to stay and compete for my spot, which would fuck over either of us, or what happened is like Frumi came in last second, and then they basically saw that I was kind of sitting at the bench, right, since we acquired this new roster. So then I decided that it's probably better to go to this other team than to stay with the team that probably didn't want another mid laner at that time.
And it's funny when you talk about bad formats, because I feel like bad formats normally comes from the UK side with the with the tower formats and everything like that. So it's nice to see that the other leagues had a bit of a bad format as well when it comes to things.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah. You kind of touched on there about the potential of a 6-man roster. Is that something you wouldn't really fancy really being a part of then? Because it's not something we kind of see too often, and when teams do it, I feel like more of the time it's not like, obviously the PR behind it is like, oh, we want them to compete, but usually it's just like, no, we want this one guy, and we
don't know what they want.
Or we want to bench this guy, but we can't get rid of him right now. What are your thoughts on that then? Because we've, there's, for example, Ferndog in the UK. He's like famously, is an advocate for a 10-man roster of having a second player in every single position. And I think they tried that with like even Excel's roster when he was there in the NEC, and it didn't seem to quite work out. So yeah, is that something you wouldn't really want to be a part of, or do you think it could work, or is it just sort of situational?
I really think that you have to have a really good structure within your team to make that kind of system work. Because I think if you're not utilizing it correctly, it can really backfire. So I think it's more of a risk than anything if you don't really have a good system for it. Because I think most of the time you see these 10-man rosters and it all sounds great. But then in reality, when it come down to making the decision, it usually like goes sour. And yeah, I think like you have to make the right decision all the time. But also, it doesn't feel great for either player, right? Like, am I gonna play today? Am I getting benched tomorrow? Like all these kind of thoughts in your head, right? So yeah, like I wouldn't mind competing for my spot, but it's like yeah, I feel like for the org as a whole, it's not good unless you're really efficient at it.
And I guess as well, it does matter on the org itself. So the one example which people look at from like West anyway is like Cloud9. But Cloud9's had an infrastructure like that for quite a long time anyway, and they don't kind of like buy 2 stars. They'll buy an upcoming talent, put them on academy, and then they'll buy the star in the top lane, and then they'll start swapping them through that. So I guess the way you could do it is kind of have like your upcoming talents. Then if that upcoming talent has played well, then maybe it's kind of like we'll test it out and stuff like that. But in ERLs, I don't think it's a smart decision to make, because let's be honest, like, you know, Erixen, you're one of the few cases of actually someone who's been at an org for a more than a split. Like most times, like you see orgs which are, you know, brand new 5-man rosters each split, because that's just the way that ERLs work at this point. Like, but until like you get those sustainable contracts with more income, with, you know, more stability in the leagues, then maybe you can start thinking about developing kind of things like that.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on coaches, I think, as well. It's kind of like more of a man management thing, because you think those examples where it does work is like Cloud9. Obviously, Reaped is like quite a really respected coach there. And, you know, I think, for example, like I think in Korea, pretty much every team does it, or they all have you know, academies, and they have like trainee teams. But then not only do they have obviously bigger infrastructures, they've also, you know, the format I think suits it better, being best of threes. They can put someone in for one game. You know, if we're talking, for example, now in the NLC, like you guys this week, you only played one game, and if you were having substitutes, is not really a chance to actually chop and change
2
things.
weeks off, isn't
exactly,
it? Like,
yeah.
You're missing 2 weeks essentially.
And what was it in the Nordic Championship? Was it just 2 games a week then? I guess like the UKLC was just like a normal round robin.
So, I think the first split I played was in 2018 with Endurance. I think at that time it was a BO3 format. And then I think the next bit it was also BO3, but then I think they made it into a best of one, if I'm not mistaken. So the format actually they changed with time. So yeah. I think the last split was similar to the UKLC with the best of one.
Yeah. So then, you know, I guess it makes sense. Yeah. So a 6-man roster, you at best, if they are changing things around, you might get half of the games, and then that's just literally one match per week anyway. So it's not ideal.
And I think especially for NLC, the split, it's 10 games, right? Like, it's such a small amount.
So short, yeah.
And it just means that every game matters even more. So you just really have to figure out your style, and you just have to stick with it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was like we were looking at with Freemy last, but we were looking at obviously Team Singularity, and they were 0-3 at the time then, and 0-3 is basically we kind of looked at it, or were they 0-2? I think they might have been 0-2, 0-3 or something like that. But we basically looked at it and be like, look, it's going to be difficult for them not to be sixth just because of how the results are, and that's only after like 2 or 3 games, which is quite insane to show how crucial it was to start off so well in the beginning.
Yeah. We'll come on to a bit more about this current split as well. I just want to touch back a bit more on the time on Barrage. So for like I say like an outsider, I suppose, you know, someone that hadn't been in the UK league before, I just wondered what were your kind of general thoughts on the UK scene before and then after you actually played in it, because I know it's got like some stereotypes, like a bit kind of known for like Twitter dramas and stuff in the UK scene, and I just kind of wondered what your thoughts were. Did you think it was a joke league or what? And then did that change?
Funnily enough, this is my first time in the UK scene.
Okay.
I think back in 2017, I actually was competing in the UK Masters, I believe it was called. I think I played for a org called Phoenix at the time. Didn't go really well, but yeah, I played under another name then as well. But in the last splits with Barrage, I think the UK league seemed honestly better than I would have expected. Like, obviously there's the academy teams, right? So there's like definitely competition to be found. But honestly, I think outside the academy teams, I didn't feel like any team was like really great in particular. I would say including us. So it was basically just just trying to see if we could become better, or like we could compete with the academy teams.
Well, that's what it felt like in the UKLC, because it was kind of like the way that it looked at in the end. Really, it was the 2 academy sides, and then the like attempted academy killers in basically you and Envision essentially, and it didn't work out either way on both of them. But that is essentially how it's been for quite a bit ever since like probably after the first season of the UKLC. It's basically just been who can beat the academy sides. Do you think that's then going into then the NLC? Do you think that's changed then a little bit, and it's kind of like everybody else seems to have stepped up in quality?
I think for sure the quality, like the overall skill talent of the league has gone up, and I think it's honestly like a really great idea, just merging the both teams together. I don't feel like either league didn't lose their identity either, so I think it's really great to see the league being as one.
And just something you said there about with being on Barrage, where you were saying that there was just the academy teams. You didn't really feel like anyone could challenge them. We'd kind of, I think, given Barrage a lot of plaudits, especially sort of the first half of the split and in the opening weeks.
I didn't. I didn't.
Not before.
I mean,
yeah,
let's be
before
honest.
the lineups
I rated you guys like 8 because I knew nothing about you all. Like, but I was proven wrong. I was definitely proven wrong, and you know, people from Barrage still like to tell me that to this day, which is fine.
You bring it up as well, Tom. But yeah, so because you just said like you maybe didn't feel like you could match that level, but sort of coming out of the first few weeks, I think even they would say on the broadcast that you guys did look like the stronger of the rest of the teams, at least early on, and it kind of looked like you guys were just even sort of just more decisive than the other teams. And one thing I was wondering about that is what was the kind of shot calling situation like, because we also had Swiffer, XL's coach, and he kind of alluded that he, you know, in his eyes he presumed that Sybil was the shot caller, because I think he was friends with him or he played with him in OPL.
It's that oceanic bond, isn't it?
Yeah, and from that I kind of thought, well, is Sybil a big part of why they looked so decisive and why because you know, especially early doors, we've even seen it with like Godsent, this split, that if you've just got better cohesion in the first couple of weeks and you are decisive and you've got quicker calls, and it really helps. So yeah, I just kind of wonder what the shot calling was like and why you think you guys did start off so strong.
Yes, I think we really hit the ground running early. I just think we were probably better to play the map than any other team. Like I don't think it was like anyone in particular that was like shot calling on the team. It was more like a team effort, right? Yeah, I think we also had good help from our coaching staff. I think Sursa, Lucian, and Alex did a great job with us. But yeah, I would just say that we really just play the map better, but also I think we had some better individual players as well compared to the other teams. So I think if you go pound for pound for each individual player, we probably came out on top in every scenario except perhaps the academy teams.
And why do you think it was that there was a bit of a drop off sort of towards the end of the split? Do you think maybe just the rest of the teams caught up, something like that?
I think we for sure didn't improve as much as we did early on. I think we had some obstacles that really we didn't get over, sadly. So I feel like we could have been a lot better towards playoffs, but I think we just had some issues that we weren't able to fix. And yeah, like looking back at it, there's some regrets, I would say, within how we did things. But I like being third is still not bad, you know. I think for sure we put up a good fight.
Yeah.
But also I think because the thing is, at the time I was living like way up north, so I'm playing at like 70-80 ping, which wouldn't be great going into E-Masters as well with the whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that we threw the like final semis on purpose or anything, but yeah, I don't think we had the greatest circumstances to be playing under as a team.
And do you think?
And obviously there was the issue with Sybil as well, wasn't there? Where Sybil couldn't come in, and obviously with then the whole COVID situation as well. Then I wonder about Flare Z. It could have been, you know, obviously they would have had a team there, but it's at what point would you've had a team there really? Would have been the issue.
Yeah, so I think COVID really gave us some questions. And yeah, if we were to make the U-Masters, maybe we would have had to get like another player last minute as well. So yeah, I don't think it would really work out that great with the circumstances.
Fair enough. And then coming on to this split, now well, knowing that you were kind of on loan from Nordavind, and then seeing obviously how well you played, I just presumed that this off-season for you, at least in my eyes, it was going to be Frumi was ringing up Cammy and saying, "Can we have him back?" And then Cammy said, "Piss off," and put the phone down, and that was it. But Frumi was actually, he was saying that there were some offers, and it kind of seemed like there was a chance you, well, there was a world where you could have potentially gone if things went the right way. So was there, not necessarily with Barrage, but did you ever think about leaving Nordavind, or was it just a case once you saw the merger happening and obviously you've been with Nordavind for a number of years now anyway, did it just seem like the most logical thing to stay?
So yeah, I would say I definitely explored my options, and I wouldn't say it was like from day one I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to Norwegian. It was definitely like more of a process where I'm just looking at all the options, and yeah, honestly, I think this off season was pretty crazy with all the stuff that was going on, especially like all the rumors with the Volo guy and all that stuff. So yeah, I think me ending up in Nordavind is probably yeah, the best decision that could have happened for me, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Good stuff. And so what was the like with the roster then? Do you know sort of, or did you have an idea of who was joining, or were you kind of one of the first ones to sign on? Because I always wonder what it's like with that. 'Cause obviously, to build a good roster, I imagine, good or in-demand players will want to play with other good players. So it's always kind of interesting to hear, because it's kind of like a domino effect. You imagine that once a couple of them are signed on, then the rest will be having to join. So were you one of the earlier ones, or did you have kind of an idea of what the roster looked like already?
So I think at the time I definitely had an idea of how it was going to look like. So yeah, like we had Hansen on board. That was the first thing. So yeah, we basically had like Hansen essentially build our roster with Orc. So yeah, I got to see the whole process.
Yeah, I imagine then with Hansen, being there with the roster building, I would have thought, it must be pretty easy to get people on then, because for anyone from the UK League, he's really well respected and known good coach.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it's like, I mean, we say it, but Hansen won regular season with Diablo, so he's probably the best ERL coach, like, which is insane. No, and I thought when Nordavind was kind of like merging in, I was like, Hansen's definitely the person for them. It just felt like a right fit, and it's good to see that then like Hansen's kind of like. Would you say that he kind of took control and kind of you gave him your trust and kind of said like, okay, I'm going to build this team for you, and obviously it's a damn good team which he's built in the end.
Yeah, I mean I would say he did a good job with how we approached tryouts and everything. So I think we're really happy with how things turn out.
Good stuff. And then going on to the season actually starting, we've got this kind of group split for the format, and we've discussed a bit on the podcast here before about the group strength, and you kind of get the idea that maybe the general level of the other group that you guys aren't in is maybe a bit higher in terms of the kind of average level, and then it seems like the group that Nordavind are in is kind of like a clear split of a clear top three and a clear bottom three, but then at the same time it's maybe you could think it's probably the group that's harder to win, if that makes sense. So out of Excel, yourselves and Riddle, who most would probably see as a top three at the moment, where do you kind of rank yourselves at the moment, or what would the kind of expectations be? Because obviously, for any team that's not an academy, I imagine you'd probably want to be first, but you'd kind of have the idea that it wouldn't be too surprising if you weren't, because obviously the academies do have more resources and everything. So what was kind of the realistic expectations for you guys, or is it just more kind of even just getting to playoffs since it is the top four that get through?
So to go to your first point about the group strengths, I would say ours is definitely harder because looking at group B, I don't see the bottom tiers being better than the bottom tiers in our group. I would say we have stronger opponents. and to where we see ourselves is probably we're looking to fight Excel for first place. So right now we're just like looking to get the revenge on Excel for the loss we had. So yeah, we're probably just looking to beat them and have the tiebreaker for first place. So yeah, we're just looking to challenge the academy team in this group.
I do find it really interesting though with both groups that you like. That I do think that kind of you've got Riddle, Nordavind, XL. I think probably Riddle would probably be maybe arguably top 2 in Group B if Riddle was in that group. If I'm being honest, in Group B, but you've kind of got similarities in the sense that of M&M and Team Singularity. You kind of look at these two sides and they're kind of like they're the relegation sides at this point, and then you've kind of got like the ones which you're unsure about, which I would say is like Godsent, ENCE, and then Dusty and Barrage. So despite like the score lines being quite different, I do actually think that there is some like similarities with both groups, and you're never going to get it perfect with splitting groups up. Like there's always going to be one team which is going to have 3 favorites in or 2 favorites in, or it's the way it goes. But I am kind of liking how it is splitting up. I do obviously agree though. I feel like each team should play each other once from each group just to make it a little bit more competitive, but that's just me. I think was it 6 more games added on is I don't think it's too bad. 16 games I think as well is better than 10, but that's not what we've got, and we're getting a little bit more of an extended playoffs and things like that. But I'm quite happy with how both groups are, to be fair. And I'm nice. It's nice to see kind of like there is no runaway. There's a clear loser in both groups, but there's no runaway right now.
Yeah, because obviously from it UKLC before, well, especially last bit, is literally just XL win every week until the playoff finals, which is kind of been not as exaggerated, but it's been pretty much like that for the last sort of 2 or 3 splits now in the UK. So yeah, it is good to see XL lose early on, especially was quite nice. What are your thoughts just on the general format, Erixen? Because we've spoken. Well, we've obviously had people on each week, and they're kind of. I guess with there being 12 teams, it's difficult to fit enough games in anyway, because obviously the general Riot season is over within sort of 8-9 weeks. And if you had 12 teams playing each other twice, it would probably run out of that, and you'd either be more broadcasting days, which obviously would cost more for the league to run themselves. But then having this kind of shorter group format does mean you've got teams like Singularity where after 2 weeks they're more or less bottom, like almost nailed on after only 2 weeks of play, and it doesn't maybe give them that much chance to kind of fight back. So yeah, I just wonder what your thoughts are on that kind of format, or I guess you guys are not necessarily lucky, but the fact that you guys have kind of hit the ground running and started off strong means I guess it's not a huge problem for you for Nordavind. But yeah, what are your kind of general thoughts on it?
So I like the idea of being able to play both groups, because I feel like it's kind of boring, honestly, to only play for other teams. I would rather much just play every team in the league twice a week, and I think that was probably a bit better. But of course, if there's like limitation to budget or whatever, then I could see it from that standpoint. But yeah, like I think it's really important to just hit the ground running in this format, because yeah, every game just matters so much because there's so few games.
Definitely.
And I think as well, what's the I guess it's the good thing and the bad thing with this format is because all I'm looking at now, like, and we're only like 3 weeks in, is all I'm thinking of, well, what's Nordavind going to be like against Munster, or what's BT going to be like against Fnatic, or what's and I'm looking at kind of like the top 2 at least at this rate, and thinking, well, how did they face off against each other? And I guess that leads to more like in terms of a viewership standpoint, it could probably lead to more viewers in playoffs. But eventually, are you just going to get to the point where you're like, do I really want to see Munster versus Dusty, for example? Because Dusty's not going to get into playoffs because there's not many games left, and Munster's probably already in playoffs. At that point, are you just going to be like, let's just get to the playoffs kind of thing? But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm only saying Munster Dusty because it is literally the only game I didn't watch today. Because I had that same feeling. I'm being completely honest. I looked at it and I was like, okay, no, I do need to get something to eat. So this is the game where I'm just gonna not watch. because I had I didn't invest in it. I'm not invested in that match. The other matches I kind of were, but and what did Munster? I think I saw it. They won in like
Yeah, that was
21
actually their
minutes,
best
didn't
game so far, probably.
they? So it's fine.
Yeah. I think for someone like Singularity, obviously they didn't have the greatest start, but I think they for sure can get better. But if I look at someone like M&M, then I'm like, yeah, it's not looking too hot there. So it's just like some teams I can see getting better, but they really, really have to get their stuff together, you know, because as I said, the games are so important, and but I can see, I can definitely see in our group there being a battle for the 4th spot, right? So there would be us, Riddle, and XL. And then I think like the 4th, the 4th place could be anyone really going into playoffs.
Yeah, it's so odd with looking at that group. When you look at kind of Godsent, I would have never have put Godsent on 2 victories. Like I really, and not even, especially with 4 games played, I would not have said they would have won 2 of them. But they have done, and then vice versa. And then they lost. Was it today? Yeah, they lost today, didn't they? But then you've got ENCE, who didn't look that good in the first week of and then they've gone 2 wins on the bounce. So now they're 2-2, and you're kind of like, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how these 2 battle it out. And you know, like, I don't think it's you kind of look at the standings and you look at Riddle 2-2 and you think, oh, is this a worry? I don't think it's too much of a worry for them. I think you're right. I think it is probably going to be like a top 3. And then you've got your Godsent and your ENCE, but then, like as Frumi was saying though, now with Team Singularity 0-4, like it's basically impossible for them not to be 6th at this point, because they've still got to play. I believe because the way the schedule is, I think they've still got to play ENCE or something, or one of those teams, and that if they lose that, then that's it for them.
Yeah, I mean, they basically just have to make the Cinderella story to be alive for playoffs.
Yeah, it's tricky because we talk about how it is harsh on teams like Singularity that if you start badly, you're in the thick of it early on, but then you know you can only kind of not pander. You can only make excuses so much, because at the end of the day, it's the same for everyone, isn't it? So it's just unfortunate, really. But yeah, we'll go on to, I think, when we talk about predictions, we can go on a bit more and talk about how the team's been playing and a bit more about this week. I did just want, before we go on to that, just to talk a bit more about the kind of rosters, and even before any games were played. I wanted to ask you who you were looking at as maybe the strongest mid laners, because when you were in the UKLC, I think it was a bit of a, don't know the word to say, maybe lucky, but it was a good time, I think, for a mid laner to be in the UKLC, because it was a lot of strong mid laners in there, probably stronger than we'd seen in a few splits with the likes of obviously Special, who's now gone to LEC, but also Magi Felix, who's still around, yourself, Adept for Envision and so on. So I just wondered who you thought are some of the stronger ones in the NLC, and who you think are maybe on the weaker end.
So I'm grateful to play against my other Norwegian mid laner Hatrix in my group. It's always fun to go up against Hatrix. But yeah, like in terms of mid laners, when I look at all of the teams, there's for sure like a few. I would honestly just say the 2 academy mid laners are the ones I'm looking at to beat and to compete against. When it comes to the others, I'm not too sure about Sebekx from Munster. Obviously plays Annie. Maybe have to ban that when you play them. But
I wanted to ask about that actually. If, what you made of that, is that something you guys had seen even around scrims or anything? Because I presume it's just a fact where obviously like Ezreal or Phelios is like the strong pick at the moment, even with the Death Dance changes. I imagine that was just a pick where you can just literally flash in and just smash Timbers down and try and delete them before they can move. Is that something obviously worked in that game for them. I think I forget who Den Voxing was playing. I think it was Aphelios he was playing, or Callisto or someone like that. Is that something you see as just a specific maybe counter pick, or do you think that could be something that could work?
I mean, I just see it as really troll, honestly, because I don't think the champ is good at all.
Was that
Yeah,
the
they shouldn't have won that
Annie
game, I
Ivan
think.
game? Sorry.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was
Look.
the battle of Ivan versus Tibbers. Yeah.
It was brilliant.
6v6, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's well. What would you have picked in that one then instead? Because yeah, to me it seemed like it was. Oh, it was Aphelios Den Voxing was playing. So what? Because the general picks are things like you kind of safer sort of late game things still, like Orianna, Corki, Azir, that type of thing. Do you think just even any of those would have made more sense?
Yeah, I think when you're playing as Orianna, you usually don't want to play Annie. That just doesn't make sense to me. But I guess he plays a lot of Annie, so maybe he thought it was good.
So what do you think do you think those are still sort of the generally stronger mid laners? Just those kind of sort of late game scaling, sort of safer types, or are we going to see many assassins coming out? Because I think we've seen like one or two. I don't know if it was in the NLC. Oh no, it was. Yeah. So we had simply played LeBlanc.
Yeah, LeBlanc is one which is coming through a little bit now.
Sebekx in his second game played Tristana, so it seems like he really doesn't want to play the kind of normal meta picks. Do you see anything else being viable right now other than really those kind of main few?
So I think probably this is the most boring mid lane meta I've seen. But I think then again, if I'm giving last pick on the red side, then I could probably have some spicy picks in the mid lane. I just think like right now it's more like a 5v5 game. It's not really about this flashy plays. I think whoever is playing better as a team usually wins. And it's all a lot of macro related, but yeah. But I think like the meta could definitely change up towards playoffs, so we could see like more spicy stuff. And I think it definitely like best of threes and best of fives. There's for sure more room to adapt and more room to be more cheesy. Because in best of ones, it's just so important to have like a good team comp.
Well, exactly, and I think that's going back to like even the schedule thing. That's a detriment with the schedule, isn't it? When you know you've only got 10 games, is it smart to kind of play something that it might work in like scrims and stuff, but is it wise to not pick the meta pick because you've got a higher chance of winning if you do play, and you could, I guess, find these non-meta picks or the not troll picks, but these other picks, and they actually work, but it's not worth the risk, I think, when you've only got 10 games playing. Now, maybe if like playoffs is confirmed and stuff like that, then maybe you can start maybe testing against other teams and stuff. But I do think it will be more like playoffs where we do see things, apart from, probably what you're going to get with Monk, not with Monk specifically, but with M&M and with Singularity, where they might try these new picks just because of the meta picks clearly aren't working or haven't worked for them.
I forgot what I was going to say then. I think. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask. You said something about it being sort of more macro focused and team play, that sort of thing. And you kind of get the idea, or you'd imagine that in that kind of meta, the jungler would obviously have a big part in that, being the one that's basically involved everywhere across the map. And your jungler Noltey, we were talking when we were doing our kind of tier list. We were saying we were maybe even a bit surprised to see him getting a shot in the NLC. Not saying that his potential wasn't there, but it was someone that was sort of called a bit inconsistent last split in the UKLC with Envision. But I think it's fair to say that in the game so far, he has actually played consistently really well. And yeah, it just has looked like he definitely deserves his place there. So I was just wondering what the experience has been playing with him this split, and it's maybe more of a question for him. But if there's been much involvement with him and Hansen, perhaps kind of getting that consistency.
Yeah, I think Noltey for sure is worthy of playing NLC. I think it comes along a lot down to the team environment, I would say. and just like how he finds his role within the team.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think for sure he has been working with Hansen one-on-one, and yeah, he's getting better for
Good stuff.
sure.
And then we couldn't have someone from Nordavind on without talking about Mummus as well, especially with Tom
I
around.
mean, I'm just waiting. Mummus is probably my favourite player in the NLC. Not gonna lie.
Erixen, where do you
how-
rate him in the top lane pool?
Top.
Momus,
Yeah.
number one.
Yeah.
It's the greatest top laner alive. Like, this guy's too good.
It's not even troll. It's true. It's
Better
true.
than Sendo, do you think?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think then.
What other answer were you expecting
True,
from that?
yeah.
Like you can't even go for me for the other side because you know that I would just say that.
I was just letting you get your moment to talk about Mummus, Tom.
What is Erixen gonna say? No, I think he's like the fourth best top laner.
You could do.
Like...
You never know. All right, so let's go on to some predictions for this week then. And we haven't actually decided. So I don't know if you've seen any of our other episodes, Erixen, but we basically do predictions each week, and we tally them up to see who's got the most points. And our guest predictions are kind of all added up together. So obviously you being the guest this week, you can fill in with our guest predictions. And what we've been doing is that we choose one game each week that will be the match of the week. So something that should be the most important match, or maybe it's the strongest teams, or it could always be the relegation scrappers as well. And that'll be worth 2 points rather than 1. We haven't actually decided on one yet. So what do you guys think would be the spiciest game this week that we could put for double points?
I mean, Fnatic Rising, maybe. I don't know. Could be quite spicy. For all the wrong reasons. But...
Yeah, not too sure about that one. Let's see.
I think the biggest game is Tricked Munster.
I was thinking that. That's a close one as well. Because otherwise, if we do Eminem Fnatic, we're all just going to pick Fnatic anyway. Spoiler alert. So
yeah, I don't think there's a lot of close games here on this.
Yeah, I think Tricked.
Yeah, I could
the
see
other one is
Tricked or Munster. Or
Barrage.
yeah, maybe like ENCE Riddle could be something as well.
Yeah.
Let's do.
I think Tricked Munster.
Yeah, let's do Trick Munster, and then let's get into some predictions then. So, the first game of the week, and while we're doing these predictions, we could obviously sort of have a chat about how well these teams are doing and the games that have gone this week, which we haven't really touched on just yet. So, the first game is Singularity against Riddle. Singularity, we've sort of spoken about a fair bit on other episodes about the struggles they've had, and obviously they had the match with Scood on the Talia and everything like that. I have to say they have this week. I don't know who. I think it was Excel they were playing this week, and they did look a lot better. Yeah, it was against Excel.
Yeah. They looked better.
They honestly, I thought they kind of looked. There was a situation where it looked like they should have really been in the driving seat, but then it may even be a bit of a case of like they just haven't. Well, that maybe even low confidence that they feel like even when they are technically winning the match, they just don't have that kind of push to properly take control and secure it. Erixen, what do you think of the last couple of weeks of Singularity? Do you see any signs of life that they might be turning things around?
Yeah, I mean, I think their game against Excel was like looking like they're winning at one point, right? So I definitely think they show signs of life. But yeah, I'm just not sure if it's already too late for them, because they obviously have to win against like all of the teams that's competing with them for the 4th place.
Yeah, I think the fact that they've already lost to a couple of the people they should be sort of fighting against in that area is obviously very bad. They are against Riddle, and we saw with Riddle against was it Godsent, I believe, where maybe a sign that they're not going to take all of the sort of lower matches quite as seriously. And you never know. Maybe they're not going to prepare. They've got ENCE in their second game, so they're kind of both matches you kind of expect Riddle to win. I kind of had a bit of the excuse last time when they were playing against Excel and Godsent in the same week that they would probably just be totally focused on Excel, and maybe that's why they weren't prepared for Godsent, and maybe that's how they slipped up against them. But against Singularity, do you guys see any chance of that? Honestly, I don't think I do. I'm going for a Riddle to win that one. Either of you guys see a world where Singularity do take that, or have the confidence to actually predict it as well?
I think the issue which I have with Singularity is I thought they actually played very well against XL.
Yeah.
But I think I commented this to you. It's like, how can a team get like 2 Barons, Dragon Soul, and then still not feel like they're going to threaten anything? Like, they're in control, but they never felt like a threat. And I was kind of like racking my brains about what possibly that could be. And it could have been a confidence thing. It wasn't that willingness to kind of push. They were beating this academy side, and maybe it was like, oh, well, maybe we'll try and go for something more and something more. And then what happened is XL ended up getting the Baron, beating him in a team fight, and then just straight up just going up and winning. It was essentially that's essentially how the game ended. It was an unbelievable, like, what was it, like a 4-man knock-up or something like that?
Yeah, the Rakan. Yeah, it was disgusting.
Ridiculous. So I think that they would have a bit of confidence going into that, but then there's also a bit of worry about are they gonna go for these proactive plays even though when they do make them, and that for me feels like a bit of an issue. I do feel like Riddle, if they lose this game, this could be bad for Riddle, because they've lost to Godsent, then they lost to Nordavind, who, to be fair, they would have wanted to have beaten. That would have been their game, which I thought that they would have also thought they could have won. And yeah, if they lose to Singularity, it does make me question actually how good this Riddle team is. I'm still going to go Riddle. I think that Riddle actually will hopefully bounce back from this, and this is a good week for them. Like, to have Singularity and ENCE, I think that's a really, really good two. You've got two good. You've got 2 games, which is always nice, but then you've got 2 kind of winnable games as well.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Erixen? Riddle or Singularity?
Yeah, so I think this is the week that Riddle has to prove that they're a good team. Like, if they don't go 2-0 this week, then I think something is definitely wrong. So yeah, I'm predicting Riddle here. I expect them to be bouncing back and giving us some more competition for the second spot or first spot.
And what do you think of Sebekx as what was kind of, well, he should be expected to be one of the top mid laners, really. He's one of the only ones with LEC experience, but then his last couple of splits he had in the LEC weren't too good, and I think that's kind of the memory that got stuck in a lot of people's minds, was that kind of time. Where do you rate him amongst the other top laners? Because when you mentioned, well, you said about the academy ones, kind of gave the idea maybe Sebekx isn't someone that you think is quite up there. What do you think of his kind of level?
I think it's definitely one of the better mids in the league. I don't think it's bad by any means. I just think that he's not really on the level of Hatrix or Mega Felix. I would say it's a bit below, but like I still enjoy. He's still a worthy opponent, you know. He's for sure someone that I'm looking at and thinking, yeah, this guy, I need to bring my A game to beat him.
And I don't think the problem with Riddle is the team. In terms of like the individual players, I think they've actually got really good individual players. I think they've won off individual plays, I feel like, and not won off being a team. And it reminds me a little bit of Envision last split, because Envision were good individual players, it felt like, but never really felt like a team. And that's why, that's why with Envision they started off so poorly, didn't they? And then they started working their way up. And to be fair, I think Riddle will probably look at 2-2 and be like, we didn't want to go 2-2. Like, they would have wanted 3-1 or maybe even 4-0 at this rate, I would have thought. Especially considering like one of the losses was to a team which they would have considered they should have beat. And so I do think they're a team which will just get better, hopefully, with each game, and having 2 winnable games. This could be kind of like the momentum push which it has for them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, like definitely. I mean, just imagine if they didn't beat XL, they would be 1-3 right now. It would kind of be a disaster.
Yeah,
which is insane. Like, but then again, if they beat Godsent, it would have been 3-1, 3-1, 3-1. So you kind of look at that way. It's really odd to see where Riddle have been.
Yeah.
It's a 2-2 where if you showed the 4 games, you wouldn't have predicted which 2 they won and which 2 they lost.
True.
I would say.
Yeah. Or even just the 1-1 from last the week
Yeah.
before last. Yeah, you would never imagine it was that way around. Speaking then of Godsent, who did upset Riddle, that's your guys' opponents for next week. I think it's the only match you guys have. I'm going for you lot to beat Godsent. I don't think that's a huge surprise. Obviously, Godsent are doing better than expected, but I kind of get the idea it may be just because they are, well, not to kind of diminish it, but they are a team that was already together. They're just a group of friends pretty much. They got picked up by Godsent, the org at least. So I kind of imagine that would help them for the first couple of weeks. That may just give them a pre-existing synergy and everything like that. But I kind of see that, or I would expect that the other teams would sort of ramp up and eventually, and eventually get kind of clear of their level. Especially you guys who, let's be honest, you already do look above their level. I imagine then Erixen, you're tipping yourselves as well. I doubt you'd go for a Godsent win.
Yeah, I think so. I think Godsent has. I think they have their strategies, and I think they've been getting away with it. Probably a bit too much. So yeah, it's time to shut them down.
I think this was this sounds really bad, but I feel like this was the first time we actually saw what people expected Godsent to be. Like yesterday, I believe, against ENCE. Oh no, today. Against ENCE.
Yeah.
It was the first game though, so it's fine. But like I feel like when I saw them, and I actually built into the hype a little bit. I thought, you know what, actually, I think Godsent could actually do this. They're a group of friends. Maybe they can do. And they didn't look good. They really, really didn't look good. Actually, there was quite a few one-sided matchups in this in today, really. And ENCE kind of just outclassed them. And like I said, I wouldn't have classed ENCE as like they weren't like a team which was blowing me away beforehand, but they really, really stepped up in that game. And I wonder if it was just because Godsent just didn't look that good. And yeah, I just think that maybe if Godsent had beat ENCE today, I would have. My perception might have actually changed into the sense I might have thought, oh well, then maybe this run can continue. Like I said, Leicester won the Premier League just off being a group of friends, so why can't Godsent do something? But yeah, this game kind of just ruined that expectation for me, and I thought, I can't go against Mummers as well, so yeah.
True. And then we've got, after that, game 3 on day 1 is ENCE against BTXL. Obviously, touched on ENCE from that last game. I thought Kevo especially looked really good. I don't know if that's maybe the
Barrage effect.
Sorry?
It's the Barrage effect.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought, I don't know, like looking at who Godsent had on the chaps they had, like I don't see anyone that can really even get onto Echo. Like I don't know. I guess that's just Echo anyway. With the E, it's hard to really lock him down. And he was just like, just every team fight was just destroying him in that game. And I think last week or the week before that I maybe hadn't seen as much from Kevo that or maybe not the performance that we'd seen last split. We hadn't seen that yet on ENCE. But yeah, I thought he definitely looked really good then today. So I'm kind of expecting a bit more of a fight than I would have said before today's game. I'm still going to go for XL. I think XL should be the stronger team still. And they'll, I'd imagine, expect themselves to beat ENCE as well. Would either of you guys think any different? Or what do you kind of think of ENCE so far?
You can go first.
Okay, so I think ENCE are going to win.
Okay.
Because I have not been fully convinced with BTXL. When you actually look at the scoreline of 3-1, it's not as convincing as you think. Like against Team Singularity, if that was no offense to Team Singularity, if that was a better side who had confidence, they would have lost that game. I think BTXL would have lost that game. Like you said, you can't take 2 Barons, a Dragon Soul, and really, and not win that game, in my opinion. Especially because it was, they should have. Just simply for me, I thought BTXL again got a good Baron, a good team fight, and won the game off that. I feel like if that was, like I said, against anybody else, maybe in the group, it could have been something different. BT obviously lost to Riddle as well, which is probably expected, but not expected. But no, it's not a massive shock. But again, it was a surprise, and I just don't think that BT haven't looked as convincing. And I do think that ENCE, after the Godsent game and being now 2-0, do have that confidence where actually I think if BTXL do continue to make these mistakes, ENCE will be a side to actually punish them. And that's why I think that it could be one of those games where people may not look at it and think, oh, ENCE can win this, but I do genuinely think that they have a shot at this. And so I'm taking a little bit of a punt here, but I do think that, yeah, ENCE have looked good, and I'm not too convinced with BTXL right now compared to what they were last split, especially not.
Let's make this. We'll have this for double points then, yeah, Tom.
No. No.
It's all right. We already decided. No worries. What do you reckon then, Erixen? Do you buy into that?
Yeah, not really. I think XL they're definitely looking shaky. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think like after they lost to Riddle and the game against Singularity, I think they definitely have like a wake up call going. So I think they for sure should prove that they are the academy team and they are really good. So I just expect them to kind of roll over ENCE. Even though ENCE is on the momentum right now with the 2-0, they can definitely put up a fight. It's not that, but I think XL will run away with it in the end.
Fair enough. I think it's quite nice to see XL not just running away with it as well. Like you said, Tom, they don't look as as strong we saw last split, and it's kind of boring in the end, isn't it? If a team just wins it over and over again, it's good to see them get challenged. And
don't say that yet, because there is a team called Fnatic Rising in the other group, which is doing
they've
quite similar.
They are still unbeaten, aren't they? Well,
yes.
True. Well, at least the fact that it switched teams is something, Tom. Let's have that.
Well, we're back to the tower format where Fnatic just win it every time, don't we?
Yeah. God. But yeah, it's nice because especially with the EU Masters seeding bullshit, really. It's good to see that it's not just the two academy teams just clearly above everyone else. Because if it was like that, then I think even players like yourselves, I wouldn't be surprised if you might think about going to a different league where you've maybe got more chance to get to EU Masters. If it is just the academies that always look like they qualify, then the rest of the teams haven't really got a chance. But yeah, the fact that we see even in that one group so far that there's not a clear team above everyone else, it's nice. I think as a viewer in that sense as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right then, game 4 on game 4 on day 1 is then our match of the week. Tricked against Munster. I think I have a feeling I've predicted Tricked for every match they've played so far. I think it's just because I just like I like Pad. I like that he's always got something up his sleeve, and they tried it again today. They did lose eventually to Fnatic, but then like you said, Tom, everyone's lost to Fnatic so far that's played them. So I don't think that's too much of a hit to them. And it was again trying something different. It wasn't an Azir top this time, but it was the Mad Lions Wukong Senna bot lane, and it
because they tried it doesn't
yeah, but it wasn't
just because you tried it doesn't mean it worked.
It wasn't it wasn't terrible. I think it wasn't until sort of the last maybe 5-10 minutes Fnatic kind of ran away with it. Until then, I thought Trick went in with a shout, and also because I'm last and I'm last by quite a way in the predictions now, I do need to make up points. So I'm going for Tricked, but I don't think it's that much of a crazy one. Munster, apart from their game today where they actually did look really strong, they haven't looked as kind of everyone expected them to, I don't think. So I don't think it would be like a huge upset to see Tricked win that. So I'm going for Tricked again. I'm putting all my eggs in the Tricked basket once again, and I'm hoping they can give me 2 points this week. What do you guys reckon? Anyone agree? Maybe not.
No. All right. I mean, I can't go off the Dusty game because I haven't seen it at all. I'm just going off kind of. I just think that Munster have a better lane by lane matchup in every single way. If I'm being completely honest, I think that The only one, actually, surprisingly for me, is a Chew and is it Unforgiven? Is it? I believe.
Yeah.
The ADC. Yeah. That's the only one where actually, because I think Achew's actually played really, really well for Tricks this split, and Erin's also played very well, and I think that so there are two matchups where I see pretty close, but um, for me, yeah, Munster are a side which should win this game. And the issue is, which I have with Tricks, is I don't know if Tricks are good in terms of like Munster good or underdogs. Because I think there's an issue when you can kind of see a side and think like, okay, this is a side which is an underdog, or this is a side which I expect to do well. And I do see Tricks more as an underdog, which is ironic because obviously basically Pad has basically managed a team of underdogs basically his entire career in the UKLC, and he's successfully done so. That's not a bad thing against that. But if I'm going off kind of who I would gut feeling say favourites, it has to be Munster.
Yeah.
And apparently they played very well against Dusty, so that
They
must
did play
mean something.
very, very well. I think with Munster as well, I think we could see a difference. You said about Achu maybe being the one sort of lane for lane difference, but from what I've seen of Heaver, to me he looks like probably the best support in the league so far. Especially in their, I think it was their opening game. I think he was playing like Thresh or something, and he was just literally like solo carry the game from support. So I think that could be a big difference for Munster as well. But yeah, what do you, Erixen? What do you make of Munster so far? Because yeah, they were billed as I think we even both Tom and I put them above Fnatic in our tier list.
Yes, we did.
But they haven't quite been at that level yet. What do you make of Munster and how they've started?
I don't think I've watched all the games, but from what I saw, they haven't really looked that convincing. They have a lot of issues similar to other teams, which is like just fundamentals really not going their way. I think, yeah, it was the any game I saw, which was like really, really back and forth.
Yeah.
Which it shouldn't have been, because I mean, like Munster should not have been able to win that game from the position that I saw. But they did, so yeah. But I think they're definitely the top 2 team in their group for sure. So yeah, it's probably gonna be Munster who takes this win. I think when you look at Tricked, you look at them and you think, okay, they haven't been beaten yet until today. They went 3-0. But then again, who did they play? Yeah, they played Eminem, Barrage, and Dusty. So it doesn't really say that much compared to now that you're getting to face the real teams. I feel, which is Fnatic and Munster. So I feel like it's gonna be hard for Tricked to beat them. But yeah, now is their time to really prove what they can do.
Fair enough.
And it's interesting because how much time do you actually pay to the other side of the group then? Like, is it kind of something where it's like priorities on your group, and then as it maybe comes closer to playoffs, then it's kind of focused on the other group, really?
Yeah, to me, I don't really pay that much attention to the group. I mostly watch it for entertainment. It's not like I studied the teams too much, but obviously when you're going into playoffs, I'll do my fair research and look at other teams. But yeah, I don't really pay that much attention to the other group.
Fair enough. I guess you don't really need to until playoffs anyway, do you? So
that's the thing, yeah. It's interesting really because even though it is like the same division, because it is 2 different leagues, and like I said, you're not going to play each other until you get playoffs. Like, why would you? Like, you watch it casually, obviously because you just want to watch it, and you've probably got people who you want to see as well, Erixen anyway. But like in terms of like, I can't imagine. Why would you sit down and watch a VOD of like a Munster game when you know that you're only going to play him potentially in 8-9 games time? Yeah,
I suppose maybe like once it's the last 1 or 2 weeks when you can tell who it's going to be, and by that time they'll be playing the way they're kind of drilled to play. Like especially the first couple of weeks, by week 7 they might be playing totally different, or it might be way better. So yeah, that's fair enough. Then going on to day 2 then of week 4. The first game we've got Barrage against Dusty. Barrage obviously got their first win today, which is very nice for them. It was against M&M, but we'll come on to M&M on the next game, I think. I'm going for Barrage because, well, I just think they'll be on a high after their first win, and they haven't actually looked bad, Barrage either. They've had a pretty tough start in terms of scheduling, I think, of who they've had to play against, and but they haven't been like totally smashed. It's not like they weren't a winless team like Singularity or M&M were, where they had been mostly beaten quite convincingly. They have had quite close games, and yeah, I think the fact that they've got that first win on the board may help them now. So yeah, I've gone for Barrage. Are you gonna upset your former teammates or your former org, Erixen? I think Frumi might actually be watching right now. I've seen him in the user list on Twitch.
Yeah, I don't think I can. I mean, I wouldn't do that to my former team. So yeah, I'm going with Barrage for this one. Like on a serious note, I think they've been looking pretty decent actually. I don't see them as a bad team, even though their score might say so. I think they definitely show signs of life, even though today they played M&M right. But I think they definitely can upset Dusty, and I think they will.
And it's funny as well because you look at 0-3 before obviously the M&M game, but then you realise it's tricked Fnatic Rising and Munster, who they've lost to, who are, to be fair, you probably look beforehand and you think that's probably the three sides you would expect them to lose to. Maybe tricked, but definitely I would say Munster and Fnatic Rising pre-season, you would have thought, okay, the losable game. So I think it is kind of a bit of the scoreline looks worse than what it is, and we kind of saw that a little bit with M&M. Whether that was M&M's fault or Barrage's fault is to be seen. So this is kind of for me, the first kind of gauge of which I don't really like considering it's week form. Or kind of this is our first gauge of where they sit in the table. But that's just the way the scheduling works. But yeah, because I think if they can beat Dusty, they're probably a top 4 side, and if they can't, then they're probably sitting 5th. I've already voiced my opinions on Dusty. Is that there has been nothing which has ever convinced me that Dusty I want to invest in. I will watch Dusty games really because I know that I have to, but I will never kind of actively watch them. I don't know why it's how Phelan was to me last split, where I just felt like I don't really want to watch Phelan. Whereas despite them both being the same scoreline, I actually am invested in Barrage as a team, and that's probably Dan Voxney, because I am very biased towards Dan Voxney as well. I do think that Barrage are going to win this game because every time I vote against Barrage, they seem to always win anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I think that for me, Dusty haven't done anything which has impressed me. Apparently, they got smashed against Munster. But then that doesn't really say a lot. But I do think that against the losses, Barrage have actually looked really good. And this could be the game which slowly turns it around for them. And I do think they're a top 4 side looking at it now.
Erixen, what do you make of what you've seen of Dusty? Obviously, you said that you don't really watch too many games from the other group, but you'd mentioned, well, you went for Barrage, and you kind of gave the idea that it would be a bit of an upset. And when we did our tier list, we'll admit that we hadn't seen much of the Dusty players, but we kind of thought from what we knew about and what we could work out that they would be one of the weaker sides, and even I think it was the opening games. Even all the analysts and the casters voted for them to beat Tricked, and Tricked have
Dusty over Tricked. I was like, what is this?
And we both said for Tricked over Dusty, and then it seemed like it was like us against the world in that. So what is it, or how do you think Dusty are? Is it a team that did look quite good on paper from what you know, or do you think they're kind of where they should be in that group?
So I think, when I said upset, I probably meant by upset in terms of the bracket right now, just how they're doing. But then again, I think there's some good players on that team. That's probably why people look at it on paper that they should be better than they are. So yeah, I think they have some decent players, but I don't consider them a better team than Barrage right now.
Fair enough. And then moving on to the second game of day 2 then.
This game.
We've got M&M against Fnatic, and obviously being a mid laner, I think you're someone that can give us some insight as to why a player might not be able to quite easily just switch to mid, and it works straight away, because that's seemingly what Monk's done. And I kind of feel a bit bad. We kind of joked about it last week, and then this week they've tried to put him on kind of a comfort pick in the Cogmore, and he's just basically they just camped the shit out of him, and yeah, he just fed the whole game pretty much. And it's even at the point I kind of feel bad now. Like the Twitch chat were making jokes about there was like a copy pasta going on the Twitch chat about the Cogmore passive and stuff like that. And
Yeah, I saw it.
yeah, it was like I'm kind of even past the point where I can laugh at it now. Well, maybe a bit, yeah. But what do you make of that decision then for Monk to switch to mid? Do you think it's something that anyone can really do? Because we do see role swaps, but I think you rarely see people switch to mid. Like if anything, it's away from mid. Like even the more famous ones like Ambition in Korea, for example, went from mid to jungle, and you've got obviously Caps and Perks who both went from mid to ADC. Do you think it's a role that is harder to switch to? Or how do you see that? Because I think what they were saying on the cast today as well was that they'd heard that Monk had the idea that he could have sort of more of an impact on the game, which I can understand. Obviously, mid is the one that's as well as jungle maybe is involved in a lot. Obviously, mid you're expected, especially in like a team play heavy meta, you're expected to roam to other lanes and have a big impact in that way. Do you think that maybe makes it harder to switch to from another lane, or do you think it could be possible for the right player?
So when it comes to mid lane, I think it's really hard for any player to switch to that role, because I do think mid lane requires the most in terms of game knowledge, but also your mechanics. When I look at jungle and mid as the most game knowledge roles, but then I look at mid lane as the more required mechanical role, right? So you have to lane against your opponent, do well against your opponent. So I just think it's like really hard. Like if you're playing any other role and you're gonna switch to mid lane, unless you're a really, really good player, I think you're just switching to hard mode, essentially. So I think when someone like Monk is like maybe he looks at himself like really good at AD carry, and then he just decides, okay, I'm just gonna play mid lane this split and I'm gonna smurf on everyone. I just think it's honestly really arrogant to think like that. So I think you definitely have to maybe think a bit more before you decide to switch mid lane, because I think it is the most hard role to switch to. So I think if you're planning on doing that, then yeah, you should know it's gonna be a rough ride.
And I feel like it should be something as well where if this was a decision of Monk, then would it like it did feel like it wasn't even like he'd just contemplated it. It does genuinely feel like, and obviously this is from the outside looking in, it does genuinely feel like it's like, right, I'm just going to play mid this season, and there was not really much like practice and preparation and everything which has kind of gone into that from a competitive level at least as well. And I think the reason why I think a lot of people are more harsh on Monk, because I do think a lot of the criticism is unfair, and we have. Obviously, when a player's playing bad, we have to say it. We can't say that he's playing terrible, right? It really is. But I think the issue is because this guy is actually a really, really good mechanical ADC, and it's kind of the unfortunate thing is actually we're not seeing Monk. We're kind of seeing like a shell of what Monk is. I feel like right now, and that may change. I obviously there was a lot of other things wrong with that M&M comp, not just Monk. Monk was obviously the main focal point, but obviously Shadow, their analyst, had come in as a support because was it Kydra? I think he's opted not to continue, or from the post it doesn't specify why. So obviously that seemed like it was last minute. So their analyst had come in and took over, and that I don't think, and I know the casters didn't kind of mention it up, but it does feel like that was very much a temporary, we'll do it this week kind of role. It felt, because the guy hadn't played support competitively and hasn't played competitively in like 3 years. I think he was a top laner, which makes sense why they put him on Karma. Essentially, I felt like. I think that there's going to be a lot of changes to M&M, but I think it's fair to put criticism on Monk. But yeah, I think it sucks more because I remember him when he was on M&M as an ADC, and even when he was obviously he didn't perform as great in LDLC, but he was still like a major part of them winning the regular season, not winning the playoffs, but in the regular season. He still played 12 matches of that competitive season. So obviously he's not a bad ADC, and it does feel like a bit more of the reason why this sucks more is because of the potential of what we could have had elsewhere.
Yep.
I'm with that in mind. I'm going for Eminem to. No, I'm not. I am going for Fnatic Rising to win. I think
Same.
it's the reason why you didn't even mention it is because I think you all knew what we were going to go for. Because Fnatic Rising, on the other hand, to praise them, I think they've looked very, very good. Like I think that, I mean, let's just scrap the trick game because you should never give Bravado Taric at all. Because I just think, like, going into that trick game, if you're so scared of what Bravado can do on that Taric, because he hardly used his ult, and obviously that's the main thing with Taric, but it felt like the Tricks were just scared because they didn't want to engage because they thought, well, Bravado's going to use his ult and then we're never going to get anything. Well, then just ban the Taric. If you're that worried about kind of engaging and stuff like that, you ban the Taric from there.
Mm-hmm. To be fair, even
but yeah, so,
even Magic Felix popped up in that game as well. I think on the Corky mid, I don't think it was always even. I don't think Bravado was even always there for those kind of kills as well. So yeah, a couple of really strong performances from them. One thing before you give your predictions, Erixen, not even in like a troll sense, do you see any viability in Cogmore mid? Because it is like one of those kind of with the typical things like the Juggermore kind of comps, and with champions like Lulu and Karma coming out a lot, do you see any possibility that there could be a team even doing like a Karma top with a Cogmore mid or something like that? Do you see that possibly working, or do you think that is just literally totally a comfort pick for Monk?
So I think AP Karma it definitely has its place right now. Like, I'm not sure how strong it's yet, but I definitely see it as something that could be a pick in this meta. But we'll just have to see as the season goes on how really strong it could be.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you're going Fnatic as well for the game then.
Yeah, I am.
Thought so.
I do think as well though, quickly, is that I think there is actually a place for kind of like these not traditional AD carries, but these AD carries actually to be played in the mid lane. And I think that's what makes the Monk move a little bit worse, is the fact that he has actually been given opportunities to play kind of these traditional AD carries, and they've still not worked out for him. You know, like the Cogmore, which is like a signature Monk pick, and like there is like the chance of maybe the Tristana and the Lucian and stuff like that, which you can still play. But I just don't think it's the right lane for him, unfortunately. I don't think it's the champions at all. I just think it's the lane.
True. Then we go on to game 3 of day 2, and it's XL against Godsent. I
mean,
we've kind of covered both these teams already, so we'll just go for some quick predictions on this one. I think I'm going for XL. I don't think that's a huge surprise. I wouldn't imagine anyone else is not going for XL. Anyone going to surprise me? Didn't think so.
Wait.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, I can't go XL going 0-2. Like I've just looked at that and I was like, no, I'm predicting XL. No, I actually do think, obviously this won't count as any points. I do think that XL do have a strong possibility of going 1-on-1 this season. This game, I think a bit like with Riddle. Like I think these are two games which actually can define kind of how BTXL are to me, because they've got two games which again are what would be considered winnable games. So yeah, but I'm still gonna go BTXL. I don't think that. I think Godsent's time might be over, in my opinion.
The honeymoon phase is finished. We'll see. Next thing you know, Godsent go 2-0. Anyway, last game then. We've got ENCE against Riddle. This one could be a bit of a tight one. You know, we've been talking about we don't know quite how good Riddle are just yet. They obviously did have the upset loss against Godsent. And ENCE are kind of on an upswing. I've still gone for Riddle. I think I'd need to see more. I think I'd need to see more of both teams really to say that ENCE could win it. So I'm going for the kind of safer pick, but it wouldn't be one where I'd be hugely surprised to be wrong, to be honest. Obviously, like I say, ENCE did play really well today, especially Kevo. And yeah, I think they've got a chance, but I'm still going for Riddle. What about you guys?
Have we gone for the same ones all today?
We have, yeah. For day 2 at least.
Okay, so I'm gonna go for ENCE.
Nice. Let me claw back some points then.
Yeah, this is ENCE's time. Yeah, they're gonna 2-0 this week. Riddle's gonna have beaten Singularity. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, we're fine. We can beat ENCE tomorrow, and then they're gonna lose, just cause. Kevo. That's it. Kevo.
But then if your things are right, then the day before ENCE would have beaten XL. So wouldn't Riddle then think, oh shit, we better pay attention. We better play properly.
No, because the fear is already in them at that point. Yeah.
Okay.
Once they've realised, they're like, oh crap, we should have prepared for that game more. We were too busy focusing on the Singularity game. No, if I had to, I do think ENCE actually do have a shot.
Yeah.
I am going off kind of a lot of like ifs and buts on what I think might happen in week 4, but just going off kind of momentum and stuff is a little bit risky. However, I feel like I've done that quite a lot this season, and I'm doing okay off that. So, yeah, I'll go ENCE. Yeah, why not? Keep it interesting.
Cool. What about yourself, Erixen?
Yeah, so on this one, I'm actually going for ENCE because I think that they're gonna have a rough time against XL, and they're gonna figure a lot out about like what their weaknesses are, and then they're gonna come back and they're gonna beat Riddle. And I think Riddle is gonna just be chilling after winning against Singularity. So I think ENCE has the advantage here, and they're gonna win.
I like the thought process.
I can imagine like ENCE like after that BTXL game. Then if they do get stomped, just like all going on a Zoom call and being like, right guys, we need to think this through, and just closing their eyes, and then it just pops this idea of this new identity which appears.
Yeah, let's see. I think with that then, I think we can probably draw this episode to a close. Thanks for coming on, Erixen. Very nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was a pleasure to be here.
Good stuff, and yeah, I think you've done well not to upset any of your former Barrage friends too much. Your predictions there. So yeah, thanks for those watching. I think we've had a few popping in on Twitch while we're recording it live, and a couple of followers, which is nice as well. If there is anyone else that's watching that hasn't followed on Twitch yet, please do feel free to, and you'll be notified obviously when future episodes are live. And for anyone else that's watching later on YouTube, you can follow on there. You'll also see our Twitters on the screen, so you can feel free to follow us directly as well. And for anyone listening to Spotify, of course, you can follow on there as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening.